Most people believe betrayal begins the moment someone lies, or cheats, or walks away. But the Sophia Empath eventually discovers betrayal begins much earlier, long before the first deception, long before the broken promise, long before the painful goodbye. Carl Jung believed that what remains unconscious does not disappear. It quietly shapes every relationship we build, and the Sophia Empath often carries something hidden into every connection. Not weakness, not innocence, but a quiet hope that understanding another person's pain will prevent them from causing pain. At first, this feels like compassion. It feels noble. It feels wise. The Sophia Empath notices the sadness behind someone's anger, the loneliness beneath someone's arrogance, the fear hidden inside someone's need for control. Where others see difficult people, they see wounded people. But human behavior follows a pattern most never recognize. People rarely become loyal simply because they are understood. Sometimes they become comfortable. Comfort slowly turns into expectation. Expectation quietly turns into entitlement, and entitlement becomes the place where betrayal first takes root. Kindness without boundaries quietly teaches people how to use you. The Sophia Empath usually doesn't notice this immediately, because they measure relationships through intention, not repetition. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious always reveals itself through recurring patterns. Never once, always again. The friend who only calls when life falls apart. The partner who apologizes with beautiful words, but repeats the same behavior. The colleague who celebrates your success publicly, yet grows strangely distant every time you move forward. Different faces, the same invisible pattern. The Sophia Empath often explains these moments away. They're just stressed. They've had a difficult childhood. They don't really mean it. Each explanation protects the relationship but slowly destroys clarity. People don't resent your weakness. They resent the possibility that you might outgrow them. That realization arrives quietly, not during conflict, but during silence, when the Sophia Empath begins comparing words with behavior instead of words with hope. Something unsettling begins to appear. The promises never changed. The patterns never changed either. Only their willingness to finally see them did. That is the painful paradox Carl Jung pointed toward. The unconscious does not hide the truth. Hope does. The Sophia Empath eventually realizes that betrayal is rarely unexpected. It only feels unexpected because the heart spent months arguing with what the mind had already noticed. And perhaps the deepest wound was never the betrayal itself. It was realizing how many warnings had been mistaken for compassion. The Sophia Empath eventually begins asking a question most people never dare to ask. Why does the same kind of betrayal keep appearing, wearing different faces, different cities, different friendships, different relationships, yet somehow the ending always feels strangely familiar? Carl Jung believed that until something hidden becomes conscious, it quietly repeats itself, not because fate is cruel, but because the unconscious is loyal to what feels familiar. The Sophia Empath slowly realizes they were never attracting identical people. They were responding to identical emotional patterns. The person who needed saving, the person who admired them too quickly, the person who called them different before truly knowing them, the person who confused emotional dependence with genuine love. At first, it feels flattering. Being needed can feel almost identical to being valued, but they are not the same thing. Someone who needs your stability may never learn to respect your boundaries. Someone who depends on your patience may never appreciate your presence. There is a quiet difference between love and emotional consumption. Most people never notice it until exhaustion arrives. The Sophia Empath does. But often, only after giving away pieces of themselves, they can never fully recover. Most relationships don't end when respect disappears. They end when awareness appears. That awareness changes everything. The Sophia Empath starts observing what happens when they stop over-explaining, when they stop fixing every misunderstanding, when they stop rescuing every emotional crisis. Something unexpected happens. Some people grow closer, others quietly disappear. The disappearance hurts, but it also reveals something. Not everyone was attached to the person. Some were attached to the service. Carl Jung believed that every human being carries a shadow, not only the darkness they hide from others, but also the parts they hide from themselves. The Sophia Empath has a shadow too. It is not cruelty. It is not selfishness. It is the deep fear that saying no might make them unlovable. So they continue saying yes, to protect peace, to avoid rejection, to preserve relationships already beginning to collapse beneath the surface. But every unnecessary yes silently becomes a betrayal of the self. And the strange thing is, people often lose respect for the person who constantly sacrifices themselves. Not because sacrifice is wrong, because endless sacrifice quietly removes mystery, boundaries, and consequence. The Sophia Empath begins to understand that betrayal from others often arrives only after they have been betraying their own intuition for far too long. There comes a moment in every Sophia Empath's life when they stop asking, "Why did they betray me?" and begin asking something far more uncomfortable. What part of me believed this was normal? That question changes everything, because betrayal rarely arrives without invitation, not a conscious invitation, an emotional one. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious is drawn toward what it has not yet understood. That is why familiar pain often feels strangely safe. The Sophia Empath notices a pattern. Whenever someone appears broken, they immediately begin searching for the goodness hidden beneath the damage. Whenever someone behaves inconsistently, they become curious instead of cautious. Whenever someone crosses a boundary, they offer another chance before asking another question. Compassion quietly becomes a substitute for discernment, and without realizing it, they begin seeing potential instead of reality. Reality has never been interested in potential. Reality watches choices again and again and again. The Sophia Empath slowly realizes that people reveal themselves long before betrayal ever happens. The small lies that seem harmless, the promises that quietly disappear, the respect that only exists when life is convenient. None of these moments feel dramatic. That is exactly why they are ignored. Human beings rarely collapse all at once. Relationships don't either. They erode, one overlooked pattern at a time, one excused behavior at a time, one silent compromise at a time. The most dangerous betrayals are rarely sudden. They are simply repeated often enough that they begin to feel ordinary. The Sophia Empath starts noticing something else. Healthy people respond differently to boundaries. They may not always agree, but they remain consistent. Manipulative people respond differently. A simple no suddenly becomes proof that you've changed. Your independence becomes selfishness. Your silence becomes disrespect. Your boundaries become an attack. Not because you became cruel, because your limits interrupted the comfort they once enjoyed. People often say they want honesty, until honesty asks them to change. That is when character becomes visible. Carl Jung believed that every relationship eventually reaches the place where illusion and reality can no longer exist together. One survives, the other disappears. The Sophia Empath begins choosing reality, even when it hurts, even when it means losing people they deeply cared about, because they finally understand something heartbreaking. Love cannot repair someone who benefits from remaining the same, and understanding another person's wounds does not require becoming responsible for them. The deepest betrayal was never that someone failed to protect your heart. It was the countless moments when you ignored your own inner voice, hoping someone else would finally become the person they kept pretending to be. The Sophia Empath eventually reaches a place where loneliness no longer feels as frightening as pretending. For years, they believed keeping the peace was the highest form of love. Avoid the argument, ignore the disrespect, forgive one more time, stay patient a little longer. It sounded compassionate, but beneath that compassion, another emotion quietly existed: fear. Not fear of conflict, fear of abandonment. Carl Jung believed that whatever we refuse to face within ourselves will eventually appear through the people we attract. The Sophia Empath begins wondering, was I really attracting betrayal? Or was I attracting people who reflected the boundaries I refused to build? That question is painful because it removes the comfort of blaming everyone else and places responsibility back where transformation can actually begin. Not every manipulative person chooses you by accident. Some recognize something: the hesitation before you say no, the guilt after protecting yourself, the habit of apologizing, even when you've done nothing wrong. These signals are almost invisible, yet people who live through control notice them immediately. They don't always plan to exploit them. Sometimes they simply grow accustomed to them. That is how unhealthy dynamics quietly become normal. One favor becomes another. One compromise becomes a lifestyle. One sacrifice becomes an expectation. Until the Sophia Empath suddenly realizes they are carrying a relationship that two people were supposed to build together. The disturbing truth about human behavior is that people often adjust to the version of you that requires the least accountability from them. If you never challenge disrespect, they stop noticing they're being disrespectful. If you never express disappointment, they assume nothing is wrong. If you continue giving without limits, they begin believing your limits never existed. People rarely value what seems endlessly available. Not because they are evil, because familiarity often blinds people to what they never feared losing. The Sophia Empath finally understands why distance changes everything. Distance does not create truth, it reveals it. Those who genuinely cared move closer through understanding. Those who only cared about access grow frustrated when access becomes limited, and suddenly betrayal looks different. It is no longer a shocking event. It becomes the final chapter of a story that had been quietly revealing itself from the very beginning. The Sophia Empath no longer asks why certain people left. They ask something far more important: who remained when I finally stopped abandoning myself? The Sophia Empath eventually realizes forgiveness and reconciliation were never the same thing. For years, they believed that if they healed their own heart, every relationship could be repaired. If they became more patient, more understanding, more compassionate, people would naturally become more honest. But Carl Jung understood something far more unsettling. Awareness transforms the person who possesses it, not necessarily the person standing in front of them. The Sophia Empath begins noticing an uncomfortable truth. Some people apologize only after consequences appear. Some people change only after losing what they assumed would never leave. And some people never change at all, not because they cannot, because their current behavior continues to serve them. That realization removes the last illusion. You cannot heal someone who has learned to benefit from remaining wounded. You cannot create loyalty inside someone who only values convenience, and you cannot force self-awareness upon someone who spends every day avoiding themselves. The Sophia Empath finally stops confusing empathy with responsibility. Understanding another person's pain does not require carrying it. Seeing someone's trauma does not obligate you to become the cure. Sometimes the kindest thing you can offer is distance, because distance forces people to meet themselves, something constant rescue never allows. Carl Jung believed that every human being eventually encounters their shadow. The only question is whether they choose to face it willingly, or spend a lifetime blaming everyone else for its existence. The Sophia Empath used to believe betrayal destroyed trust. Now they understand something deeper. Betrayal destroyed illusion, and illusion was far more dangerous. Illusion whispered, "They'll change because they love you." Reality quietly answered, "They'll change only when they choose to." Illusion said, "If you give enough, they'll finally appreciate you." Reality replied, "People often become accustomed to what they never had to earn." That truth feels cold, but it is also strangely freeing, because once expectations disappear, clarity finally arrives. The Sophia Empath no longer measures love by beautiful words. They measure it by peaceful consistency, by accountability, by mutual effort, by the quiet feeling that they no longer have to earn basic respect. Perhaps that is why betrayal eventually loses its power, not because it stops happening, because it stops surprising them. They have learned that character always introduces itself. Long before betrayal ever does, most people simply become distracted before the introduction is finished, and the Sophia Empath finally decides to listen all the way to the end. The deepest transformation the Sophia Empath experiences is not becoming better at recognizing betrayal. It is becoming unwilling to betray themselves ever again. There was a time when every relationship felt like a test. Could they love enough, forgive enough, understand enough? Surely, if they became the safest person in someone else's life, that person would eventually become safe for them too. But human nature does not always respond to kindness with gratitude. Sometimes it responds with comfort, and comfort has a dangerous habit. It slowly forgets the value of what is always available. Carl Jung believed that the greatest deception is not the lie another person tells you. It is the lie you continue telling yourself, because the truth asks you to let go. The Sophia Empath begins recognizing those quiet lies. They didn't mean it. They're just going through something. This isn't who they really are. But what if this is exactly who they are? Not because they never suffered, not because they were born cruel, but because character is revealed through repeated choices, not hidden intentions. That realization feels almost unbearable, because it forces the Sophia Empath to mourn someone who never truly existed. Not the real person, the imagined version, the future they kept hoping would arrive, the potential they loved more than the reality standing in front of them. And perhaps that is why letting go hurts so deeply. You are not only releasing a person, you are releasing a story where patience eventually fixed everything. A story where unconditional love guaranteed loyalty. A story where your sacrifice would finally be understood. Reality quietly closes that story, not with anger, with evidence. People show you what they value by what they repeatedly protect. If they protect excuses more than the relationship, they have already made their choice. If they protect pride more than honesty, they have already made their choice. If they protect comfort more than your peace, they have already made their choice. The Sophia Empath no longer argues with those choices. They simply believe them, because believing reality is far less painful than endlessly negotiating with illusion. In the end, betrayal was never the lesson. Discernment was, not the coldness that closes the heart, but the wisdom that opens it. Only where trust has been earned. The Sophia Empath finally understands that love without awareness becomes sacrifice, and sacrifice without boundaries eventually becomes self-abandonment. From that moment forward, they stop chasing explanations. They stop waiting for people to become someone they have never consistently been. Instead, they quietly walk toward those whose actions make trust feel effortless. Because the greatest act of self-respect is not learning how to survive betrayal. It is learning to recognize the patterns before betrayal ever has the chance to arrive.